It was a regular Tuesday afternoon in downtown Los Angeles. The kind of day where the sun sits heavy and golden over the streets, and everyone moves fast, heads down, minds somewhere else. Food trucks lined the sidewalk. Music drifted from a corner barbershop. Kids kicked a can near a fire hydrant. Steven Seagal had just wrapped a private meeting at a hotel a few blocks away. He was walking alone, something he preferred when he wanted to clear his head. No entourage, no cameras, just a big, quiet man in a dark jacket moving through a busy city like anyone else. He had a bottle of water in one hand and his phone in the other, scrolling through nothing in particular. That's when he heard it. Not a crash, not a scream, just laughter. The wrong kind. The kind that sounds like a pack of wolves circling something smaller than themselves. Steven slowed down. Across the street, beside the entrance of a small convenience store, a young delivery boy stood completely still. He couldn't have been older than 16. His uniform was wrinkled and too big for his thin frame. His helmet hung crooked off his handlebars. His delivery bag, stuffed full of orders, sat open on the ground, contents spilling out onto the dirty pavement. Standing around him were 4 older guys. Late teens, maybe early 20s. Loud, cocky, shoulders puffed up like they owned the entire block. One of them was recording on his phone, laughing while he filmed. Another had his foot pressed down on the boy's delivery bag, pinning it to the ground. The boy kept bending down trying to pick it up, and every time he reached, the guy would kick it further away, like it was a game. Like the boy's entire livelihood was a toy. The delivery boy wasn't crying. He was past crying. He just kept saying, sorry, please, I just need to go. I have more deliveries. His voice was shaking like a leaf in a storm. Nobody on the street stopped. A woman glanced over, then looked at her shoes and kept walking. A man on a bench watched for 3 seconds, then pulled out his own phone and looked away. A group of teenagers nearby saw the whole thing and did nothing except whisper to each other. Steven stood completely still on the opposite sidewalk, watching. He had seen this kind of thing before, not just in movies or on television, in real life, in gyms, in alleyways, in school hallways, in places where someone thought they could control another person just because that person was smaller, younger, or alone. His expression didn't change. His face stayed calm, completely calm, the way a deep lake stays still even before a thunderstorm breaks above it. He crossed the street. He didn't rush. He didn't jog. He just walked, one slow, deliberate step at a time, the kind of walk that takes up space without asking permission for it. The bullies were too busy enjoying themselves to notice him coming. The delivery boy saw him first. His red-rimmed eyes blinked in confusion. A grown man, large, calm, moving straight toward them like a ship that had already decided where it was going. The boy shook his head slightly. No, please, don't. His expression was terrified. Not of the bullies anymore. Terrified that someone else was about to get hurt because of him. Steven stopped right at the edge of their circle. For a moment, nobody spoke. The guy with his foot on the bag looked up. He scanned Steven from head to toe. Big guy, dark jacket, older. He almost laughed. You need something, old-timer? Steven looked at the boy first. You all right, son? The boy opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. I'm okay, he whispered. You don't have to do this. Steven nodded slowly. Then he looked at the bully. He didn't say anything right away. He just looked. That was the thing about Steven Seagal. He didn't need to fill silence with noise. He was comfortable in it. And somehow, that made everyone around him deeply uncomfortable. The bully shifted his weight. Look, this doesn't concern you. Walk away. I'll walk away, Steven said quietly. As soon as you take your foot off that bag. The bully blinked. He wasn't used to calm. He expected fear, or anger, or argument. Calm confused him. Calm felt dangerous in a way he couldn't explain. He forced a laugh, looking at his friends for backup. You hear this guy? His friends laughed. But it was a little shorter than usual. A little hollow. Steven didn't look at them. He kept his eyes on the leader. You're a young man, Steven said. You've got your whole life ahead of you. Don't waste it doing this. The leader's smile faded slightly at the edges. What are you, a motivational speaker? Get out of here before you regret it. I don't have regrets, Steven said simply. And the crowd that had gathered because a crowd always gathers when something is happening. Even if nobody wants to admit they're watching, that crowd shifted closer without realizing it. Because something about Steven Seagal standing on that sidewalk made even strangers feel like they were watching something important. A young woman near the corner whispered to her friend, "Wait, is that who I think it is?" Her friend squinted. No way that's him. He wouldn't just be walking around here." But she didn't sound sure. The delivery boy tugged on Steven's jacket sleeve. His fingers were trembling. "Sir, please. I don't want you getting hurt. They're not worth it. I'll just apologize and they'll leave." Steven looked down at him, and his expression softened for just a moment. Something real moved across his face. Not pity, not sympathy, something more like recognition. "You have nothing to apologize for," Steven said quietly. "Nothing." The boy blinked hard, like those words hit somewhere deep. Like nobody had said that to him before. Like he had been saying sorry his whole life to people who never deserved the apology. The leader stepped forward. He got close to Steven's face, or tried to. He was tall, but Steven was taller and broader, and somehow took up more space despite standing completely still. "I said walk away. Last time I'm asking nicely." Steven tilted his head. "Is that what that was?" "Nice." Laughter moved through the small crowd again. Not mean laughter this time. Nervous laughter. The kind people make when tension is building and they don't know how to handle it. The second bully, the one who had been recording everything, pointed his phone directly at Steven now. "You're being filmed, old man. Walk away before you embarrass yourself." Steven looked at the phone camera, then looked back at the bully. "Good. Then everyone will see exactly what happened here." Something changed in the air when he said that, like a pressure shift before lightning strikes. The leader shoved Steven's shoulder. It was the kind of shove meant to send someone stumbling backward, to prove a point, to show the crowd who was in control. Steven didn't stumble. He didn't move. Not an inch. Not a centimeter. It was like shoving a wall that happened to be wearing a jacket. The bully's own arm bounced back from the impact. His friend stared. The delivery boy stared. The crowd stared. Steven looked down at the hand the bully had shoved him with, then back up at the bully's face. "Are you done?" he asked. The bully's jaw tightened. His face was turning red, that particular shade of red that happens when embarrassment and anger mix together and a person can't figure out which one to feel first. "You have no idea who you're messing with," the bully said, his voice dropping to something harder and uglier than before. Steven nodded slowly. "You're right. I don't. But I have a feeling you're about to realize who you're messing with." A child sitting on his father's shoulders in the crowd whispered loudly, "Daddy, that big man isn't scared at all." "No," the father murmured. "He's not." The leader swung first. A big, wide punch, full of anger and very little control. The kind of punch that looks powerful when you're the one throwing it and looks slow when you're the one watching it. Steven leaned back. Just slightly. Just enough. The fist passed his chin with inches to spare. The bully stumbled forward from the force of his own swing. Steven didn't hit him. He stepped to the side, calmly, like he was moving around a slow car on the highway. The crowd gasped. The second bully charged, more reckless than the first. Steven pivoted his entire body sideways and extended one firm arm. The bully ran directly into it and bounced backward like a basketball hitting a wall, landing hard on the curb and scrambling to get up with wide, frightened eyes. No dramatic moves. No performance. Just efficient, precise control that came from decades of training so deeply embedded in his bones that it looked effortless. "You've been trained," one man in the crowd whispered to nobody in particular. "Look at him. He's been trained." The third bully grabbed an empty glass bottle from a nearby ledge. He raised it up. The crowd screamed. The delivery boy cried out, "No, stop." Steven turned to face him. Completely still. Completely calm. "Put it down," he said. The bully's hand was shaking. He wanted to look tough. He was trying to look tough. But something about the way Steven Seagal looked at him made his body want to do the opposite of tough. His muscles were telling him to run. His pride was telling him to stay. And in that battle between pride and survival, survival always wins eventually. He lowered the bottle. He set it down. Steven nodded once. Smart. The fourth bully, who hadn't moved the entire time, who had been the quietest of the group, took one look at his friends and at Steven, and made a decision that was probably the most intelligent choice any of them had made all day. He turned around and walked away quickly, hands in pockets, not looking back. The leader, his pride completely shattered now, his friends humiliated, the crowd recording everything, looked at Steven with the hollow expression of someone who had just realized they picked a fight with the wrong chapter of the wrong book. "Who are you?" he said. And this time it wasn't a challenge. It was a genuine question. Smaller, quieter. Steven straightened his jacket. "My name is Steven Seagal." The silence that followed lasted maybe 2 seconds. Then the crowd erupted. One woman clasped her hands over her mouth. A teenager grabbed his friend's arm with both hands. Somebody shouted, "I knew it. I knew it from the second he crossed the street." 2 older men near the back started clapping. The bully's face went completely white. His mouth moved, but no words came out. He looked at the phone his friend was still somehow holding, recording everything. He looked at the crowd. He looked at Steven. He looked at the delivery boy, who was standing behind Steven, tears streaming quietly down his face. And then, without another word, the leader turned and walked away. Fast, then faster. His remaining friends followed, none of them looking back, none of them speaking, all of them understanding in that deep, quiet part of themselves that they had done something wrong today and that the whole world had just watched it happen. The crowd burst into applause. Not polite applause, real applause, the kind that comes from the chest. The kind that happens when something has been wrong for too long and someone finally made it right. Steven turned back to the delivery boy. The boy was crying now. Not loudly, just quietly. The way you cry when you've been holding it in for so long that your body finally stops asking permission. Steven crouched down, picked up the spilled items from the delivery bag, and began placing them back inside carefully. The boy watched him, frozen. A famous man, one of the most recognized faces on the planet, was kneeling on a Los Angeles sidewalk picking up his delivery orders. "Sir," the boy said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You don't have to do that." "I know," Steven said, still packing the bag. "I want to." He handed the bag back, zipped it up, stood. "How many more deliveries do you have?" The boy sniffed. 3, maybe 4. "Then you better get moving," Steven said. And there was the smallest hint of a smile in the corner of his mouth. "Don't keep people waiting." The boy laughed. He actually laughed. A shaky, surprised, grateful laugh that probably felt strange in his throat because he hadn't expected to laugh today. Not even close. He put the bag over his shoulder and straightened his helmet on his head. "Thank you," he said. "I don't know how to say thank you for something like this." Steven put a hand on his shoulder briefly. "Do your job. Be proud of it. That's enough." As the boy climbed on his bike and rode off into the busy street, the crowd watched him go. A few people cheered again. One older woman called out, "You ride safe, sweetheart." And the boy, for the first time in longer than he could remember, held his head up while he rode. Steven stayed on the sidewalk another minute. A few people approached him carefully. A couple of teenagers asked for photos. He said yes to all of them, quietly and without ceremony. An older man shook his hand and said simply, "Thank you for doing that." Steven nodded. That was the only exchange he needed. Then he put his water bottle under his arm, slipped his phone back in his pocket, and continued his walk like nothing remarkable had happened. Like stepping between a child and a group of bullies was just what you did when you saw it. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. Because to him it was. He was half a block away when he heard footsteps behind him. A young man, the one who had been recording the whole thing, jogged up beside him. "Mr. Seagal," he said breathlessly, "I got the whole thing. Is it okay if I post it?" Steven glanced at him. "Why are you asking me?" "Because," the young man hesitated, "it's your moment. I wanted to make sure." Steven thought for a second. "It's not my moment," he said. "It's his. Post it." By the time the delivery boy finished his last order that evening, the video had already crossed 800,000 views. He found out from his younger sister, who burst through the front door of their apartment waving her phone so hard she nearly dropped it. "It's you," she yelled. "You're on the internet. You and Steven Seagal. It's everywhere." The boy took her phone slowly. He watched the video. He watched himself trembling on that sidewalk, trying to pick up his bag, apologizing to people who had no right to his apology. He watched Steven Seagal cross the street. He watched the bullies freeze. He watched himself standing behind that broad, dark jacket like it was a shelter from a storm. He had to pause the video twice because his vision blurred. The comments were pouring in faster than he could read them. This delivery boy held it together under pressure. More courage than people twice his age. Steven Seagal just walked into a real-life action movie and didn't even break a sweat. Protect every delivery worker. They work harder than most of us and get treated the worst. That boy's face when Steven stood in front of him. That's what it looks like when someone finally has a person in their corner. The boy sat on the edge of his bed for a long time after that. He thought about how many times he had ridden through neighborhoods like that one. How many times people had said rude things to him, or ignored him, or treated his work like it was invisible. How many times he had said sorry when he had nothing to apologize for, because saying sorry was easier than the alternative, and the alternative was dangerous when you were small and alone. He had never expected anyone to step in. He had never expected anything except to finish his shift and come home and do it all again tomorrow. And then a man who could have walked past, who had every reason to keep walking, who had nothing to gain and everything to lose by getting involved, had crossed the street for him. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. He had already gotten 3 calls from reporters in the past hour, and he didn't know what to say to any of them. But something made him pick up. Hello. A low, quiet, familiar voice. The same voice he had heard say, "Your job doesn't define your worth," on a sidewalk 2 hours ago. It's Steven. How are you holding up, son? The boy stood up so fast he nearly knocked his lamp over. Mr. Seagal, sir, I don't. I'm fine. I mean, yes, I'm holding up. I'm okay. A quiet laugh on the other end. Good. I saw the video got out. I just wanted to make sure you were doing all right and not overwhelmed. I'm a little overwhelmed, the boy admitted honestly. That's fair, Steven said. It'll settle. People's attention moves fast. But the feeling you carry from today, that's yours to keep. Don't let the noise drown it out. The boy sat back down on his bed, phone pressed tight to his ear. I don't know how to thank you. I keep trying to find the right words, and I can't. You don't need words, Steven said. You handled yourself with dignity today. You didn't run. You didn't break down. You stayed on your feet. That's what matters. There was a pause. Not an awkward one. The comfortable kind, between people who've been through something together. Can I ask you something? The boy said. Go ahead. Why did you stop? You didn't have to. Nobody else did. Steven was quiet for a moment. Because I was there, he finally said. And sometimes that's the only reason you need. The boy nodded, even though Steven couldn't see him. He pressed the back of his hand to his eyes quickly. My mother cried when she saw the video, he said. She said she's been worried about me on these routes for a long time. She said she prays for me every morning before I leave. She sounds like a good woman. She is, the boy said softly. She works 2 jobs. She's the strongest person I know. Then she raised someone who knows how to stand their ground, Steven said. Tell her she did well. After they hung up, the boy sat in his quiet room for a long time. Outside, the city hummed along the way it always did. Horns and voices and music and the sound of a million lives moving forward. He opened his phone and looked at the video one more time. He watched the part where Steven Seagal turned and said, "This is my business," with that quiet, immovable certainty. He thought about how alone he had felt 5 minutes before that moment. Like he was the only person in a city of millions who could see what was happening to him. And then someone saw and walked across the street. By the next morning, the video had passed 30 million views. It was on the news in 14 countries. Delivery worker groups shared it in hundreds of group chats. Schools used it in anti-bullying discussions. A senator mentioned it during a speech about worker dignity. The bullies were identified within hours, the way the internet always identifies people when it decides something is important enough. They faced consequences at their schools and workplaces. 2 of them issued public apologies. The third transferred schools. Justice arrived not as a dramatic courtroom moment, but as the quiet, irreversible weight of 30 million witnesses. The delivery company reached out to the boy directly. They offered him a promotion to a safer district, a pay increase, and new equipment. Workers across the country began sharing their own stories about being mistreated on the job. A fund was started in the boy's name to support delivery workers in need. It raised more money in 48 hours than anyone expected. But none of that was what stayed with him. What stayed with him was a sidewalk. A man who didn't have to stop. A hand placing his spilled items gently back into his bag. A voice saying, "Your job doesn't define your worth. Your courage does." He posted one thing that night. No long caption. No hashtags. Just a simple sentence in his own words. "Today I learned that one person stepping forward can change everything. Be that person." It became the most liked comment on the original video within the hour. Because the world, underneath all its noise and speed and looking away and minding its own business, the world is full of people who want to see someone step forward. Full of people who are tired of watching and want to believe that somebody, somewhere, will cross the street. Steven Seagal crossed the street. And somewhere tonight, there is a delivery boy riding through a city with his head up, moving a little faster, standing a little taller, carrying something heavier than food orders and lighter than fear. He carries the memory of one afternoon when a stranger saw him, really saw him, and decided that was enough reason to stop.